Hello, we are Team 4. This is Video 1, a general description of our area of interest, Malaysia, India, Thailand, and Vietnam. Starting out, these are 4 countries that are in geographic proximity to each other, located in Southeast Asia. They all have significant coastal availability and significant port cities for facilitating trade and movement of goods across the seas. A unique option related to this specific area is the high population density. If we note the overall map of the world's population density, a lot of the significantly high density areas are primarily within India, but within all 4 of these Southeast Asian countries, allowing for significant opportunity in terms of trade and development. An important thing to note when comparing these 4 countries to the US is that these 4 countries do have similarities across the cultural dimensions between the 4 of them, although there are some small differences that can be highlighted. But importantly, there are significant differences when we look at the culture present in these 4 countries compared to the US. Importantly, looking at power distance as a significant difference and higher weighted than in the US, while counteractively, the individualism is weighted much higher in the US than in any of these countries. When we begin to review each country individually, we'll see that Malaysia is a country that is broken up into both a section on the peninsula as well as a section on the island of Borneo. This is an important consideration for thinking about how we'll distribute goods and services even within that country. If we look at the overall population, we note that there's a higher number of middle-aged people than young people. And so though the growth rate is 1.23%, it does appear that birth rate is declining. When we evaluate Malaysia from an economic standpoint, we see that there is some slow but steady GDP growth growing at 3.9%. We also note that Malaysia has a favorable trade balance with exports higher than imports. When we look at the distribution of their exports, we find that it's primarily electrical and petroleum products. They also have top imports in the electrical and chemical product area as well. Looking at the overall environment and relationship from a commerce standpoint with the U.S., we see that the U.S. and Malaysia has a long-standing relationship dating back to the 1800s. And it was in 1957 that the U.S. first established official diplomatic relations with Malaysia, and they have elevated that to a comprehensive partnership in 2014. Today, they share a diverse and expanding partnership in trade, climate, investment, security, environmental cooperation, and educational and cultural relations, making Malaysia a diverse and important partner in the U.S. engagement in Southeast Asia. Their economic ties are longstanding and robust, with Malaysia being the United States' 19th largest trading partner and 4th largest trading partner among the 10 ASEAN members. And the United States is Malaysia's 3rd largest trading partner after China and Singapore. The United States and Malaysia have a long history of successful engagement under things like the Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, as well as the World Trade Organization with ASEAN, and under the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity. Malaysia and the U.S. belong to a number of the same international organizations, including the United Nations, the ASEAN Regional Forum, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. And the Malaysia and the United States are both on the UN's Committee for Human Rights Council for the 2022 to 2024 term, making overall the relationship between the U.S. and Malaysia a robust and long-standing relationship and partnership for trade. Next, we come to India, which in the last couple of years has surpassed China to be the most populous nation in the world. We see that it demonstrates continued growth rate, although with the shape of the distribution, we note that it continues to have a somewhat decreased birth rate, as noted by having increased middle-aged individuals compared to young children. Looking at India from an economic standpoint, we see that it has a very high GDP and also has a 6.7% growth in this. It, however, does operate at a trade deficit with imports significantly outweighing exports. However, there's a significant amount of exports coming to the US. We also note that the top imports are primarily in the crude oil and electronics areas, with top exports being petroleum refined products, as well as significant amounts of um, other equipments, notably significant amounts of jewelry and gems. In evaluating the relationship between US and India, we see that it is a strategic partnership founded on shared values, including commitment to democracy, as well as upholding the rules-based international system. The two countries work with shared interest in promoting global security, stability, and economic prosperity through close connections in trade, investment, and connectivity. In addition, in 2021, the US and India bilateral trade in goods and services reached a record $157 billion, and the United States is India's largest trading partner and most important export market. Many US companies view India as a critical market and have expanded their operations there, and similarly, Indian companies continue to seek to increase their presence in the US. Indian investment in the United States reached $12.7 billion and supports over 70,000 American jobs. There are additionally nearly 200,000 Indian students in the United States, contributing $7.7 billion annually to the U.S. economy. India and the U.S. work closely at multiple organizations, including the UN, G20, the ASEAN, the Regional Forum, International Money Fund, World Bank, World Trade Organization. Additionally, India is a member of several other associations, the Indian Ocean Rim Association, which the United States is a dialogue partner in. Important to note is that while there's a shared relationship between India and US, it only continues to grow, and India will likely represent of the four countries in this region, the one with the most potential for investment and growth of a trade and distribution. Moving on to Thailand, we see that Thailand has an approximately stable population with no real significant growth rate, but again, the noted shape indicates somewhat declining birth rate. Economically, Thailand shows a slow but steady GDP growth and operates almost at net neutral in terms of imports only slightly outweighing exports. They again have significant exports to the US, and the top imports are primarily crude oil and industrial machinery. Top exports are largely in office machine parts, electrical equipment, as well as vehicles. Thailand and the US have a robust alliance that benefits both nations as well as supports peace and prosperity in that region of the world. It's a long-standing relationship dating back to the 1800s, and a first agreement was in 1833 for the Treaty of Amity and Commerce. They remain allies to this day, and as of 2024, commemorated over 190 years of friendly and formalized diplomatic relations with Thailand. The U.S. is the 18th largest trading partner, or the Thailand is the 18th largest trading partner for the U.S., and the United States and Thailand continue to show significant foreign direct investment, including $15.8 billion of foreign direct investment from the U.S. to Thailand, and Thailand's foreign direct investment in the U.S. of $2.9 billion. The U.S.-Thailand Trade and Investment Framework Agreement was signed in 2002, and it provides the strategic framework and principles for dialogue and cooperation on trade and investment issues between the United States and Thailand. They continue to work together based on this agreement to strengthen the bilateral trade relationship and discuss a full range of economic issues. Finally, we have Vietnam, which shows an interesting bimodal distribution of population and an overall approximately stable population numbers. Economically, there is slow GDP growth at 4.5% and overall a favorable trade balance. with top imports being machinery, petroleum products, top exports being electronics and textile apparel based. Finally, the US and Vietnam, while they have an interesting history revolving around war, has now moved on to be a friendly relationship of trusted partnership, sharing a partnership that focuses on development of bilateral trade in a strong, prosperous, independent, and resilient Vietnam.